exciting round, a very fun round. I mean, Carlsen lost yet again, which is quite shocking, I think, to some people. He's on 0 out of 2, and he is the world champion, so that's not normal. I mean, it's a lovely game today by Caruana, really smooth game, and in all effects, it kind of made Carlsen look like a bit of a beginner. I mean, that's a bit controversial, I know, but he was made to look a little bit like a beginner today. Do you think that's fair, Alex, to say that? Or
you know what I think?
Too much?
I think this. Let's just suppose that London 2000 never happened, and that Berlin defense just stayed on the shelf where it was, on the dusty shelf of chess history and chess theory. And then suddenly, in the year 2015, well, we have this game, the game that you're about to see. And then you ask me, Alex, what do you think of this? I would say, with that kind of opening, what do you expect? But now I cannot say
Indeed,
this because of the track record of the Berlin and the success that Black had. And it's not only Kramnik, it's everyone on top level plays Berlin successfully. And by the way, the last time these two guys met, Fabiano had the white pieces, Magnus had the black pieces, and it was the the one before the last. That was the Berlin. Actually, Carlsen won last 2 games prior to this one, when he had black against Caruana. But I agree with you.
Yeah.
In this game, it looked totally different.
Certainly. I mean, you're obviously referring to the World Championship match in 2000 between Kramnik and Kasparov. It was quite funny, this World Championship match, because my job there, Yermo, I wasn't doing anything chess-wise. I was actually showing people. It was played in London. I was showing people to their seats in the auditorium. So I had a good view of this match where Kramnik used the Berlin to take down Gary Kasparov.
Well, will you give me a referral?
Then, it's been a very popular opening. I mean,
you should give me a referral, you know, if for another big chess event, you know. I would love this job. Being an
It's great.
usher.
It's a brilliant job.
Yeah, being an usher at a
Definitely,
chess event, you know, this is perfect, you know, and ushering people in. Yeah. So basically, what were your impressions, you know, as you were I know you were a good player already. Could you believe in this Berlin thing, you know, being played on the World Championship stage?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I mean, I found this, even though I had this job of watching the games and showing people to their seats, I found that World Championship match personally one of the more boring ones. And I have to say, I'm not a great fan of the Berlin. I mean, it's not an opening I would personally play. I think it's a matter of personal opinion. It just seems it gets a bit dry for me, even though that might not be the correct thing to say, because you do get some fascinating middle game positions, but the queens come off quite early, and it just seems a bit. It's not for me. It's not for me. It's a matter of personal taste, but I don't like the opening so much, you know.
I know the feeling, because I was told, you know, to start playing this, and I actually, I mean, I was given, you know, a complete database, you know, on everything Berlin. It was about 4 years ago, 5 years ago, the start of a US championship, and I promised my friend who made this database to play the Berlin in this tournament, and I never did. I feel bad about it. Anyway,
yeah,
well,
I mean,
would you like to see the moves?
I can never play the Berlin. Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
let's go.
If we go over to the game, obviously, this is the brilliant game between these two. Well, Fabiano playing a great game. It just looks so smooth. That was the strange thing. I mean, I'm not even entirely sure where Carlsen went wrong, and I'm kind of hoping, Yermo, that this could be the end of the Berlin. More losses like that, and people will stop playing the Berlin. I mean, Magnus must be really upset with this game. But is h6 the normal move here, Yermo? Do you know? Because I've seen h5 being played.
h6 is not the only move. Now, here's what my take on this whole thing. First of all, h3 in this particular position, instead of rook d1 check or knight c3, is Caruana's own improvement or whatever. A little bit of tinkering is going on. The purpose of h3 is to see how black reacts. If black wants to go Kramnik way, which is the other way with the king, then after h3, in reply to bishop d7, then white plays this, and then there's like bishop goes there, and then white does this stuff, and then the knight is very useful coming from d2 to f3. Now, Fabiano played this position. He did not win every game, but it's impossible. You're not going to win every game. But if you win out 1 out of 3, that already is enough to discourage the opponents from going into the Berlin. All the same, of course, we assume that white will never lose. Caruana's problem was that he couldn't avoid losses. He lost to Magnus Carlsen last time they had the Berlin, unnecessary. And he also lost to Mickey Adams. A couple years prior to that. So, well, there are always these things, I think, that the problem is not that Caruana cannot win games. He does win his share of games, but he pushes real hard against the Berlin, and sometimes it could be dangerous when the pawns go forward and the white king cannot follow the pawns. But in this discovery, I think, is very important. The knight comes to f3, and it somehow took the sting out of this whole plan with king c8. And I don't think, that Carlsen wanted to play this line. So therefore, he didn't play bishop d7. He already played h6 against Fabiano in a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, h6...
Year and a half ago. Look what happened. I will show you. Now, after h6, it transposes to this. Now the king has to go to e8. And in this position, Carlsen played the very rare move bishop d7 against Fabiano, and Fabiano beat him. He played bishop f4 and rook d8, and we'll talk about rook d8 later. And it doesn't matter, it's not like this position is lost. But in this game, Magnus was under pressure and he blundered. Interesting thing is that, then he switched to this move knight e7. That's the last time they had the Berlin. And he won that game because Fabiano continued with bishop f4, not with b3 as in this game. He continued with bishop f4, and there was knight g6, bishop there, and bishop b4. Now, this is considered to be maybe the best line for black now. And, when Magnus played it, he was able to defeat Fabiano. And there are a lot of examples from top players in this line. So that's my take on this whole thing. But then they come to this, and then Fabiano plays b3. The move that hasn't been tried, for 3 or 4 years already. He just plays b3.
It seems very natural, b3. I mean, the whole thing with the Berlin, I think you have to be a certain type of player to be happy playing this kind of position as black. I mean, black has the 2 bishops, black has potential to attack the pawn on e5, but in general, white has a slightly better pawn structure, a bit more space, and it's more easy for white to play. So I think you have to be quite accurate, don't you, Yermo, when you're playing this kind of opening with black, because a couple of small mistakes which Magnus played today probably leads him into a lot of trouble.
There is another thing about it. Well, I mean, Magnus obviously was shaken up. I mean, what happened to him yesterday, it cannot be, cannot be denied. It did happen, and it's a terrible thing. And, he handled it like a man, like this. 5 minutes after signing the score sheet, he was on Norwegian TV talking about the game. So, I mean, that's fantastic what he did. And he did say it's my fault only. I'm referring to time forfeit. Yet, those things, they always leave some kind of impact, and just 24 hours is just not enough to get over it. And now, the Berlin is a tricky opening. You really have to be in this special kind of mindset. you have to feel good about yourself and about the tournament, and only then the Berlin is may be successful. There was one moment in this game when I think Magnus could not decide if he should try to complicate matters or rather play more provocatively. In the back of his mind there always this need, to win this game. And that's really a wrong mindset for the Berlin. You can't. You have to accept this position the way it is. I mean, about b3, normally, Zoltan Almashi, probably the first player who introduced this knight e7, knight g6. The whole maneuver this with the knight. Strange. Kind of. How many moves with the knight already? Are we insane? What are we talking about? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And black is not lost. I mean, the rules of the game don't apply to this, but this is what they do. Knight f4. And this is considered the best recipe. Recipe against the plan with bishop b2. And it has never been refuted. I don't know.
It's crazy that, this knight can move around so much, because it does, like you say, break all the principles of chess. You shouldn't move the same piece twice in the opening, and it's jumping everywhere.
Seven moves with the knight already, and I found like 10 or 12 games by very good players in the database with this position, and black seemed to be doing okay. Now, was Caruana prepared for that? I'm sure he was. I don't know, well, do I know what he had prepared? I have no idea. Well, Carlsen tried to beat him to the punch, because there is always this, psychological warfare going on, and, between the people who played each other many times. And here he played this move, bishop f5. Is that a novelty? No, but it's a rare move. And honestly, the whole idea of putting the bishop on h7 does not appear to me at all. Does not appear to me the proper way of playing this opening. But maybe black can play like this, but this game certainly makes me wonder, if this was a good idea at all. No, this is standard.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because I was having a discussion with another chess-playing friend of mine recently, and we were talking about all the people in this tournament, and we were kind of saying, well, Magnus Carlsen, it's very easy to see where he could improve as a chess player. His openings seem to be real. They can be targeted as they were here, and they're still very weak. For someone who's a world champion, his openings seem to be really bad. And that's quite strange that, the world champion, the best player in the world, can still improve a lot at one area of his game when all the other players in the tournament seem to have quite rounded openings. But I think this idea, as you said, putting the bishop on h7, this bishop is a horrible piece later on. It turns into a big pawn. It doesn't do anything on h7. You might as well just glue it to the board. And it seems like his preparation's been bad again here. So,
well, I don't know.
Surprising.
Well, this may be so. I cannot really outright dismiss the move bishop h7 because, first of all, because Magnus played it. Secondly, because someone else played it before. But one thing that I wanna point out: what does White really wanna do? Well, after moving all his knights here and there, he wants to play g4, f4, and f5. Now, how does Black fight against it? At some moment they play h5, and they put pressure on that pawn chain, using the bishop that basically sits on its original diagonal. As you move the bishop away to h7, you simply take that plan out of consideration. And now Black has to find some kind of counterplay, because really, in a slow developing way, he cannot do anything against g4, f4, f5. And look what happened. First of all, he plays rook d8. Now, there is a lot of talk about, is it good for Black to exchange a pair of rooks in the Berlin or not? I think it depends where the king is. But later in the game, you'll see that when the Black king went to c8, later, well, Black could not get anything going on the queen side because he already traded that rook. And, no, I don't know. It is hard for me to answer this, but, well, But I mean, it's the second time around Magnus puts his rook on d8 against Caruana and loses the Berlin endgame. And the game that he won, that was kind of like between those, he never put the rook on d8, it went differently. Alright, now there was a Polgar game. Judith played e6. That gives white nothing. Her opponent played very accurately and defended by just playing this kind of stuff. Now, later in the game, actually, Judith got in trouble because she didn't want to take on f7, and then her pawn became kind of isolated over there and very shaky. Well, I don't really like this position for white. I think black is extremely solid, and I can see this pawn on e6 in some variations being lost. So they drew, although. Now, I think Caruana said, you know, we're gonna play this thing a little later in the show. I think Caruana indicated that he was prepared to face bishop f5. Now, this is luck, right? Because who would expect bishop f5? But he played very quickly. I remember I was watching live and he played this move, knight ce2, in 1 minute of thinking time. And Magnus was spending more time here. So Magnus tries to surprise Fabiano with bishop f5, and this is what they get. Fabiano is well prepared, and Magnus has to improvise. I don't know, do you like this? Knight d5 before.
Well, I mean, you know, to be honest, to me, I mean, I don't understand the Berlin so well, but to me already, I think something has gone wrong for black. He seems quite cramped. He's moving this knight to b4, and later on he keeps moving this knight around the board, and he doesn't seem to achieve anything. And it seems like white has this natural plan here of going maybe f4, f5. He has some nice pieces in the center, and I don't really know what the knight's doing on b4, Yermo.
Well,
I mean,
stopping
he had to move that knight somewhere.
Simon,
Yeah.
that's the only reason why he went there. Otherwise, white would have just gone f4. At least now he's threatening this
F4,
knight d3
yeah.
thing. So Magnus already
Yeah,
kind
sure.
of scrambling and improvising. It
Yeah,
may be not
definitely.
a
I mean,
bad idea. I think actually it's a great idea to bring the knight to b4. I'm just not sure it's enough. Well, at
yeah.
least he
I mean,
stopped
maybe
f4.
the position's already bad.
No,
So-
it's compromised. I don't know. Well, there are degrees of... So he played this. And now this is the moment. I really thought that Magnus would play bishop e7. Now, with the idea maybe to play bishop g5 at the right moment and try to get to d3. The good thing about this knight on b4, guys, if white plays a3, then this is quite good. Because now black will trade and then grab that knight, and well, he's winning some pawns over there. So that's pretty good stuff for black. So white really cannot resolve this issue with the knight on b4 that easily. But I thought, instead of a3, Magnus was afraid of this one. And here is what I thought. I thought bishop f6. It is really difficult to come to terms with what's happening here, because white is going to take this on f6 and you have to take with the pawn. It looks bad, but somehow I could not find a clear-cut way for white to dominate here. There are many different moves. There is bishop a3. I tried many things. I just couldn't see how white, well, achieves big advantage. But it's difficult to allow this to happen. And obviously black is only trying to make a draw. And Magnus simply could not bring himself to play in this position, I think.
But Yermo, you know, the move that Magnus played in the game, I mean, this is a move that when I was looking at the game, I was shocked that he played the move he did. And it's a move that I can never play. I mean, this position still looks quite difficult, the one you just showed, but the move Magnus played in the game is just, it's a very, I mean, okay, it's maybe an okay move, but rook g8, I mean, is this really possible?
I don't know.
It's very strange.
Anything. Well, experience just watching other people play taught me that anything's possible in this strange opening. And I mean, in some variations, then the g7 pawn is protected. You'll see some strange lines here. Okay, actually Fabiano played g4 very quickly because it's the obvious move. And now I thought maybe this. And then the idea would be to... So g7 is protected and this move pushes the other knight back. I mean, you get absolutely nothing, you know, on this g6 wins a piece. I mean, there are some knight takes h6, some kind of combinations, but I mean, I'm not sure they're very convincing. Maybe they're not. And there's some variations, actually, even without bishop there. Okay, let me see. Knight f... Just kind of some random move, I don't know, idiotic move like this. Maybe indicating that you want to take this pawn, whatever. And now if does this, surprisingly, rook g8 greatly helps in this position as well. And the way Magnus played, I don't know, rook g8 is not a bad move. I can't really lay everything at this move, but ultimately he went, okay, let me see. Oh, there was this great line that I was thinking about. So he plays totally surprising move here.
Knight to a6. I mean, he's got knight d5, knight b4, but now he's put the knight back on a6. I mean, that knight on b4 to me seemed like a good square for the knight, and I think your maneuver that you pointed out, going bishop e7 to
bishop g5.
g5, is a very important maneuver. I think black has to try to get rid of the knight on f4.
He probably didn't like this because the knight on f4 was a temporary thing for white to cover d3. The real plan remains the same. Maybe he didn't want it. Maybe he didn't want this to be. But h5 maybe a little bit. Now at least you stop in f4, but still it's tough to find moves. I mean, look, I put this bishop on e6 here. I think black has a perfect Berlin. He will be threatening to play g6 and win that pawn on g4. Now let's put the blame where the blame belongs. Bishop on h7. I mean, I guess. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I don't like black's position.
I mean, it's this bishop on h7. I mean, to me, the plan of going bishop f5 and bishop h7, I mean, after this game, I think we're rarely going to see this. As you can see, this bishop is really just a big pawn on h7. Okay, you can take on f5, but then you improve white's pawn structure after he takes the g-pawn on f5. And this light square bishop, this light square bishop is just a terrible piece. It needs to be on e6 where it can at least cut across to the queen side as well. So maybe after this game, bishop f5 will just be, it won't be played anymore. And I think
I guess maybe
Fabiano.
Not, I guess I agree with you.
I think Fabiano refuted it lovely. You know, he did it really good job of refuting this idea.
He had enough restraint not to play e6 as Polgar played. And he simply kept on improving. And I like knight d5 and knight b4, but it just failed to accomplish a whole lot. Now, about computer evaluations, they need to be taken with a pound of salt, you know, at least, you know, because it's difficult for computers to, or us to agree with computers' evaluations in positions like this. When there are straight up tactics here, there capture, like, I don't know, then of course we take computers' advice. Here I'm not sure, but Beer Patzer is telling us that after knight a6, the evaluation started climbing up. Now, critical moment, I want to show this. So he doesn't go bishop e7 and he goes knight a6. Now comes this and knight c5. Okay. He's still trying to get to d3 and reply to knight h5. So Caruana took and then this. Now, which way to go with the king? Normally you should be staying on e8 because there is no counterplay anymore on the queen side. But I mean, what to do next? I was looking at this position like, what to do next? Do you play g6 now? Look at this thing on h7. I don't know what to say.
It's a stupid piece, this bishop on h7, and it seems like it's I don't know, it's a drunk bishop. It's caved itself into the wall, you know. It looks crazy on h7. So very bad piece.
Yeah, so Magnus went the other way with the king. Now, there are going to be some pretty tactics. Now, I mean, it still takes Caruana to, obviously, to make progress here with white, because the obvious moves are not, I mean, they're not going anywhere. But this was very interesting because he introduced some tactical content into this. First off, on g6, however bad g6 may be, this line clearly favors white. Now, in all these lines, the king is cut off from the king's side, and if you trade rooks, you probably lose kind of hopelessly in the minor piece endgame. I think at some moment in the minor piece endgame...
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, yeah.
The knight could guard the b1
I mean,
square.
in the game, we got a similar-ish ending to this, except Black's bishop on h7 was a dark squared bishop in the game, and we will see that in the game, Carlsen, the ending's very interesting, but his bishop gets dominated later on. The other bishop gets dominated.
But Simon,
around here, there was some nice
prefer
tactics,
to have the white square bishop, because with the white square bishop, at least there is hope you get to come to b1. With the dark square bishop, there is no hope. Okay, so here's how that worked out the tactics. g6 was bad, so he plays this move. And there it comes. Correct capture here. Do not first capture on f8, because that would allow bishop takes f5. And black totally escapes. Oh, Fabiano, precision there. Now, what do you do? If you take on e6...
You know, this is a really nice point. When I was watching this part of the game, Yermo, I was wondering, why doesn't he just go pawn takes e6? But there's a beautiful move here, isn't there? Yeah, this move is stunning. Bishop to e7.
Stunning move, checkmate out of nowhere. Look at all this. Exactly. You must go b6. And I stupidly thought during the game that Fabiano is going to take with the rook and then convert some extra pawns to opposite cover bishops. Forget about it. He's simply gonna queen that pawn, or rather force black to give up the bishop on e8. And that's resignable.
Yeah.
There is nothing here to discuss. It doesn't matter what pawns you have here on the board. E-pawn just is going
I mean, bishop e7 is a beautiful move. It's a really nice move. Really nice move. Yeah. It shows you as well, Yermo, that even in these positions that are quite, a lot of pieces are getting exchanged, the queens are off the board, tactics in chess just, are everywhere. And even when there's little pieces, you have to keep your eyes open for these like crafty tactics, like bishop e7. And it's a really, really nice move, that one. Just wins the game immediately.
Right. Now, well, they say that behind every positional game and positional mistakes, there is some tactical line that one guy saw and the other one didn't. Maybe that's the explanation, but no. Anyway,
chess is all tactics.
Now I show you what really bothered me about this position. Okay, Carlsen has 52 minutes on his clock for 16 moves. He knows he messed up. He probably missed bishop e7 or whatever. He knows that he's facing a very unpleasant defensive task here, and then forget about winning this game. But he banged his next move very quickly, bishop f8. If I am upset with Magnus, that's only because of this move. He failed to look at the position deeper and realize that the biggest problem in the resulting rook and knight versus bishop endgames is his pawn on h6. And his inability to create any kind of counterplay. Play h5 for crying out loud. This is your last chance in the game. Now, it doesn't even make any threats, this move. But what it does, it trades off the h-pawns. Now, after king g2, now I play this. All the same, you can do this. Beautiful tactics. Knight takes e6 and you cannot take the pawn on g4. King f3 followed by mate. Granted, I agree with all that. I will play exactly like Magnus played in the game, with substantial difference. No bad pawn on h6, and the knight cannot come to g3 and h5 or e4, because of the pawn on g4. So you have to go back to e3. And then, I mean, I know it's bad, but it's not lost yet. I will fight. I will try. I mean, is it lost? I don't think so.
No, it's much better than the game. And I think this shows like an important point that if you're struggling and you know you're going to get a tough ending, the more pawns you can exchange off the board, the more likely you are to draw. And that's why your move h5, I think, is a very clever idea. It just goes with the principles of chess. If you're trying to draw, you swap pawns off the board. And we see in the game, this pawn on h6 is one of the reasons Carlsen lost so badly. So, yeah, so I think this h5 is a very important move.
Well, that's the moment when the world champion, finally showed us, that indeed the blow he received 24 hours prior to that was bigger, than he was willing to admit. Because at this moment when he played bishop f8, Magnus quit. I'm not saying that he quit on the tournament and he didn't quit on chess. Well, but we'll talk about this later. But on this game he quit. He played bishop f8 too quick and it didn't take advantage of this last chance with h5. Now, I have nothing to add to this, because this position is probably lost. I see bad pawn structure, I see no future in trading rooks to bring the king closer, because minor piece endgame. No targets here. I mean, I don't know. Do you have any suggestions here for black?
I think it's very tough. I mean, as you pointed out, if you look at the bishop that black has remaining on the board, the dark square bishop, the only chance I think black would have is if he actually had this light square bishop, because black's bishop doesn't have anything to attack. It has no reason. It has no reason to play the game. I mean, it can float about the board, but it can't actually create any threats. And white's pawn formation on the king side is really nice and solid. The knight plays a great role. White can you can get a pass pawn on the f file by pushing the f pawn, or he can get a pass pawn, as he did in the game, on the g file as well. Yeah. So, at this level, this is a completely lost position. And I mean, it's one of those positions, Yermo, where the knight actually dominates the bishop. And I think it's worth pointing out that white's queenside pawns are all on light squares, and black has a dark square bishop. So, this bishop cannot attack those pawns. So that's why I'm saying if it's a light square bishop, at least that bishop may be able to create some threats, but not in this situation, not at all. So
when white can speculate on this rook trade all the time, like this, it's impossible to defend. You have to be on the run from everything. Look at this. He couldn't even come king d7 because of the fork, and now it's f4. Once white lined up the pawns, no, I mean, it's a piece of cake. I agree with Fabiano. Now there is nothing to look here. Anyway, just as journalists should, I will show you the final position, and I will explain why Magnus resigned. But one last moment. See this accurate move? You don't need to recapture the pawn and give him a chance to give check. No, just this. Once again, Fabiano knows 100% that if the rooks are traded, he's gonna bring the point home. Magnus, well. Why did Magnus resign here? I give you just one sample line. You cannot move anything. It's not even about rook takes h6. No. Eventually, white is just gonna shuffle the king back and forth until you run out of pawn moves, and then you would resign. You would either lose the bishop or king f7, knight takes h6, or move the rook away and let me queen. This is about as bad as it gets. That's why Magnus was absolutely correct in stopping the clock. And, he got beat. What can you say?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was a very nice game by Fabiano. I think he kept it smooth. He made it look very easy. And, that's one of the worst losses I think I've seen Carlsen have, just because he didn't really fight in that game. It's also quite funny, Yermo, while we've been looking at that game, I had a Skype message, and I thought it might be someone to, ask me some questions about the thing. But it's actually Jobava. Jobava is actually Skyping me at the moment, which is quite funny. Well, where is Jobava? I want Jobava to be playing in this tournament. So he would add a lot of interest, I think. But there you go. One of my favorite players.
Yeah, well, Jobava we've seen already, but I have a feeling that he is overmatched. Well, I mean, all his good qualities, but all due respect, I just don't see him, and playing against top 10 players. He simply doesn't know enough about the game. Sorry to be so blunt, but I mean, he could have a good tournament, but No. If he can
Sure.
still elevate his game, obviously I should be the person encouraging him because, no, I became a grandmaster at the age of 34. And I improved dramatically and hit my best, like when I was maybe 39 years old or so. So if Jabava continues this way, then he will become top 5 in the world. I wish him all the best.
Yeah.
Now, let's play the video, short clip made by, our great man behind the scenes. The man who makes this whole thing work is Peter Doug.